We're going to go ahead and check in with Shocks and Stress over at the analyst desk.
Thank you. Always forgetting about Quickshot, but he's still here. SK Gaming in this one, dotting the I's and I knew I would forget, crossing the T's. In that one, another win and just firmly being even more firm in that #1 spot for them. Although, again, in the early game, Gambit was able to not push them around a little bit, but control them.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, I want to expand on something that Stress touched on at the beginning of the game. Leading up till this week, SK Gaming had an average of 1,000 gold lead at 20 minutes. Average. Sometimes higher, sometimes lower. In this week's games, these two matches, SK Gaming is down 1,000 gold. And it's just not the same controlling level that we've seen from him. Yes, SK are 15-3. They are the #1 seed. They had a fantastic split. But we've seen them sort of plateau in power. Every other team seems to be climbing up towards SK, but they're just not close enough to topple them yet. So it does set us up for some very interesting playoff matches, considering these other teams are growing in skill and closing that gap.
The problem for the other teams, though, is post 20 minutes, you look at SK and it's business as usual for Given and Fox. Both of them, again, putting up double-digit kills and assists. And, you know, the strategy coming in from Gambit was the ban Graves or ban Lucian will take the Graves away. And then for Given just picks Caitlyn, because that's his third down on the list. And he just gets through the rough period for Caitlyn, get him into a place in the game where he can carry, along with Fox, who... Let's talk about that Katarina pick just a little bit here. So much crowd control on the side of Gambit Gaming, and yet Fox goes unkilled for a good 25 minutes. That really shouldn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. A vast difference with the Katarina that we saw yesterday. You could absolutely make it happen, and I'd like to bring one of the replays up on the screen as it shows what happens if you do not shut down a Katarina as he's about to jump in.
Yeah, so there's a few things that stands out in my mind. First of all, Pinoy uses absolutely everything just to try kill Svenskeren. If the rest of the team had been in better positions, I might have, you know, liked that play. But the problem is now that as SK group up, all of that burst damage from Pinoy is just not available. Betsy and Diamond also engaging on the frontline tank. I actually felt for the majority of this game, Betsy didn't find the right flanking and, you know, opportunities. He didn't get under the squishies as often as he needed to. And you notice Fox just goes, I think it was a triple kill this particular engage. Managed to dodge that flay from Thresh. And for the entirety of the game, Fox wasn't punished because he made the right decisions. He was always jumping into the team fight at the right time. Freddy was just leading the charge every single engage. It just never felt like the rest of SK were making mistakes in team fights because they were really following really well.
I'm glad you mentioned Freddy on Maokai. We've seen Cabochard yesterday going to that Maokai, and we may have made some jokes about it, but it is a solid pick. And if you see that they go for the first pick, Graves, and then give up Maokai and Nami, which I want to touch on in a second as well, even if it's not your preference, I don't really think that Diana worked in this one, and Maokai is such a solid pick.
This is an interesting week. We've seen first pick Annie's not particularly doing well, first pick Graves. Pinoy had a few good moments, but in a meta where you've got these mega tanks, I think first picking an AD carry that can do all right, but is not necessarily the best at dealing with them is risky.
Yep.
Because you're always going to have those options to run those heavy front lines, to run those really big bruisers. And it just didn't work out in Gambit's favor this particular match. I also think a little bit more pressure from Betsy and Cabochard on the flanks. Their vision game wasn't up to par, and they weren't getting in on the sides of SK because SK just ran headlong, and Gambit's like, well, we'll fight this way, why not?
Another thing that was crucial, as I just touched on, because we gave and rated a bit of flag before also at IEM because of his Annie play and always reverting back to that Lulu, he has stepped up for me in the last couple of weeks. That Nami is almost as good as mine, I would say. Just kidding. It's really, really good. And he just shows that he's mechanically adept on that champion, as we've seen last season.
Yeah, it was a great game from N-Rated this time around. And we know that, obviously, you mentioned the Lulu that he's been playing. I'm glad to see him back on the Nami, really just helping out get Forgiven through that rough period that Caitlyn has. And a lot of the ultimates that came out from N-Rated were on point. They were exactly what Fox needed to set up the shun pose around the fight as well and protect Fox while he was in his ultimate. So there was just so much coming out from N-Rated, which was really good to see.
Yeah, and a second Katarina of the week. Second time we've seen Luden's Echo built second. The only reason I want to highlight that, we've heard so much talk about Luden's Echo. Deficio, I am looking at you, because he's been ranting about it all week long. And there's been a lot of discussion on social media, on Reddit, about if you don't build it first item, is it worth building? And it's just very interesting to see both Nukeduck and Fox prioritizing it after the Abyssal Scepter, which is something we weren't necessarily expecting coming into the week. Worked for Fox, not so much for Nukeduck yesterday.
Yeah, indeed. We'll see how that evolves. But SK Gaming, another win on the board, solidly in first place. And Gambit, we might see them a little later in the tiebreaker, or not at all. But coming up next, Meet Your Makers will take on Roccat as they try and avoid automatic relegation to the Challenger Series. We'll be here covering all the action in just 3.5.
Is the tiebreaker tomorrow or what?
No.
It's after the games today.
Yeah, after the games. If we lose, we play tiebreakers.
If we
and
win, we play
Cabo
tiebreaker
No,
too.
we don't.
There's I promise you, if we lose, there is no tiebreaker.
There's already one guaranteed tiebreaker.
Let's just win. It's easier if we win.
But he's not going to do anything to Kabashard, trying to get the resets. He will get some kills. Oh my goodness, a triple kill!
Pick up Katarina, she jumps in. We need to go back, we need to go back.
Nice.
Back up, finish the game. Back up,
Nice. Ace in the hole onto Diamond. Meanwhile, they're looking for Svenskar, and in comes Fox. They make the play. They got the hook on him, and he's going to get Asania's on. Edwards going down. Coming up with it. Pinoy will fall as well as Svenskar picks him off. The fight's going haywire, but SK, they might have just more in the tank. Fox just goes wild. SK Gaming, absolutely #1